Hello and welcome. It's Shannon Cooper here, and I wanted to make this short audio because I really wanted to kind of highlight something that looks really crucial to me in how we understand our mind. And it's one of those things that is so easy to overlook and so easy to miss, but when understood really makes all the difference. And so in a lot of work that I do with people, what I tend to hear over and over again is this idea that when life isn't going our way, or when there's something that we want to fix or change or have be different, that it's on us to figure out how to make that happen. And not only does that not look true to me whatsoever, but it looks like that actually just gets in the way. And what I mean by that is, it looks to me more and more that if people really saw how self-correcting they were by nature, that it wouldn't make any sense to do all of these things in an attempt to correct our experience or feel differently about any area of our life. And one of the things that has been really apparent is, especially when we don't understand kind of how our experience works, and we don't know that it's inside out, and we don't know that we can't actually feel the outside world directly. We can only feel and experience our thinking in the moment. It really looks then like, well, my thinking is something that I need to contend with. Like when it looks like it's coming from our job or our partner or our relationships or our bank balance, then it really looks like, well, that thing needs to change first. And once that's changed, I'll feel better. But that's missing the fact that experience does not work that way. Experience always works from the inside out. That's the only way it can work. And so when we start to kind of clue into the fact that, like, wait a minute, what if my partner or my job or my bank balance or my friends or my health or where I live actually can't seep into my mind and make me feel something that I don't think? Then it kind of leaves space for thought to be a bit more fluid and have a bit more kind of flow and variance to it completely naturally. And when I see, whether it's clients or friends or just people who come to me and say, here is a thing in my life that I need to be different. I don't want to do X or be X or have X. It looks so apparent to me that, like, the first thing we need to do is kind of correct the misunderstanding that the thing they think is causing them to feel a certain way actually does not have that power. It can't have that power. There's no stress germs that can lift off of somebody that we're in a relationship with and seep into us. There's no fear germs that can seep out of the numbers that we see on the screen when we're checking our bank balance and seep into us. There's no molecules that kind of come from our workplace that make us have a miserable experience and can't wait for Friday. It just doesn't work like that. And so once that kind of misunderstanding of how experience works is kind of addressed a little bit, then I often hear the question of, like, well, that's great. So if it's coming from me and it's not things that I need to fix out there, then how do I fix it? How do I fix my thinking? How do I fix my experience? How do I fix my anxiety? How do I fix my depression? How do I fix how I feel in the relationship? How do I fix any number of things that we feel is on us to change? And that's really the key, is that we misunderstand that it's our job to make change happen in our lives. We misunderstand that, like, we don't see that there's nothing that we need to do to make change happen, because change is kind of the natural default There's so much less to do than you think, because change is not your job. There's a saying that I love that says the only thing that is constant is change. And I think that really highlights kind of what is always going on. And so when I have people come to me and they say, yeah, I need to fix my anxiety, I need to fix my depression, I need to fix my relationship, I need to fix all of these things in my life, it looks to me like, well, do you know that that will get fixed for you? Do you know that that is something that it will take care of itself? And that doesn't mean that you will never take action, or there'll be nothing for you to do, or nothing that if somebody were to follow you around with a video camera that they would see happening. But it's so much less about you striving and pushing and efforting to make it happen, and so much more about just being open to the fact that the very nature of life is change. So change is just this natural flow of energy that's going to move through you. And the more open we can be to it, the better. And so, reflecting on this, I realized, well, a lot of people don't understand that the mind is self-correcting. And I'll say that again because I think it's worth repeating. Most people don't understand that the mind is self-correcting. And what I mean by that is any kind of state that we get ourselves in, any anxious state or depressed state or stressed state or fearful state or worried state or just anything, is just where thought is kind of flowing in the moment. It's just kind of what our internal experience is doing. And it's designed to clear out. It's designed kind of the same way that nature is designed, in that a storm will come up and it will have hail, it will have snow, it'll have rain, it'll have winds, it'll have just kind of stormy, turbulent weather. And it comes up and it does its thing, and it takes different amounts of time, and it kind of looks different every time it happens. And then eventually everything just settles out. There's never been a storm that has gone on forever. There's never been a storm that didn't eventually default to just calm, peaceful, natural state of being. And we work the same way. So every anxious state we've gotten into, every really low depressed mood we've gotten into, every kind of, whether it's a panic attack or just an episode of suicidal thinking, or really just anything that we kind of get in our experience that feels really unpleasant, it clears out in time. And it's only because we've been so kind of cultured into believing that we have to do stuff and need to do stuff and are required to do stuff that we then look to, oh, well, what did I do before I felt better? Oh, right, I, had a few glasses of wine, or I had a big cry to one of my friends, or I called up that person and told them where they can shove it, or just anything. And it's like, but that thing didn't actually cause the storm to clear out. The storm clears out because that's what storms do. And we kind of develop these superstitions about looking to what we were doing before and saying, yeah, that must have been it. It must have been the alcohol, or it must have been the confrontation, or it must have been the tears, or it must have been any number of things that fix that. And I would just really invite you to consider, like, well, what if you did absolutely nothing? Absolutely nothing. You didn't do anything, talk to anyone, change anything about you or your environment. Would the storm still clear out? And the answer is yes, because that's its nature. And so when I talk about the mind being self-correcting, I don't mean it's self-correcting in a volitional, like, oh, well, if I don't like my experience, I will just snap my fingers and voila, I will feel better. It's more like, okay, feeling better is not my job. Fortunately, it's not my job. It's not on me. It's not something that I need to do. It's not something that I really have to play a role in. And the irony is that the less I tend to do, the quicker my mind self-corrects. And I'll say that again because I feel like it's so opposite to what many of us believe. But the less we do, the quicker we self-correct. And the reason for this is simply that we're not then getting in the way of the storm that is just clearing out by nature. We're not kind of, it's like if we had a bowl of water and it was really murky and it was full of mud and silt and clay and other things. And it was trying to settle and kind of separate so that all the silt fell to the bottom and all the water on top was clear. And we kept sticking a spoon in and stirring it up. Of course, every time we stick a spoon in to stir it up, it's going to get murky again. It's going to be unsettled. It's going to be unclear. And so in the same way as doing nothing allows it to just settle naturally, doing nothing with our thinking and doing nothing with our experience and doing nothing with needing to get out of how we're feeling is the quickest way to feel better. Michael Neal has a wonderful quote that says, the fastest way to a quiet mind is doing nothing to quiet the mind. And I love that because it so points to the fact that it's kind of our innocent messing with the storm that's trying to clear out or the water that's trying to settle that keeps it going for longer than it needs to. So there is really nothing that you need to do to make that happen. And that's what I mean by there's so much less to do than you think. That's what I mean when I say do nothing. It doesn't actually mean stop what you're doing and act like a statue and freeze and anything silly like that. It just means like, what if it was okay that if you have a panic attack, you have a panic attack? What if it's okay that when you have suicidal thinking, you have suicidal thinking? You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to try to change it. What if it was okay to just let that unpleasant experience be an unpleasant experience? In the exact same way it works in nature. I don't like when it's hailing particularly. I don't find windstorms that are breaking trees to be pleasant, but I know that anything that I try to do isn't going to quell the storm, and it's going to last as long as it lasts, and it's going to go. And because I know that, I then don't make it about me having to do anything. And so if all you take from this is that we usually misunderstand how our experience works, we think that when we fix those outside causes, it's going to change how we feel inside, but that isn't actually how it works. It can't work that way. Experience is always an inside-out phenomenon and never an outside-in causal relationship. Then that's going to prove super helpful in just having an accurate view of how life and how the mind works. And then once we see that, okay, if we don't like the experience we're having that's coming from within us, just like a storm, if we're getting stormy, unpleasant, dark, dreary, hopeless thinking, that's perfectly okay. There's nothing we need to do with it. There's nothing that we even should do with it, because that's only making it worse. And we can just kind of let everything be there until it's not, and let nature take care of it. Because we are not separate from nature. We aren't. We have this idea that, oh, well, yeah, there's nature outside of human beings, and then there's human beings. But the exact same way that animals have instincts and know what to do and can figure things out and have kind of self-regulating bodies in the same way that we have self-regulating bodies, is the exact same thing that we have self-regulating minds. Our minds self-correct. They return to the calm, peaceful state. They return to the blue sky. The sun comes back out eventually. And everything just gets to be peaceful and settled and content. And not always like happy, bright, ecstatic. Yay, everything is so wonderful. Yay, life is perfect. I'm so hyper. But just like, things just feel good. In that really kind of feeling at home kind of way. We just return home and things just feel good. And to know that that is our natural state, and that is kind of the system default, and that isn't something that we have to go and achieve. It's not something we have to go work our way to. It's not something that we need to get as a result of fixing all the areas of our life that aren't the way we want them to be. When we just see that, okay, when the storm clears out, everything is fine. And when the storm is there, everything is also fine. It just doesn't really look and feel like that. Okay, so what? That's life. I know it'll clear out without me doing anything, and I'll be right back to feeling at home again. And so hopefully this audio was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, or if there's any other kind of topics or areas of interest to you, then please email me. I would love to hear them and hopefully do some audios or videos on them. So you can always reach me at shannon@evergreeninsight.com. And yeah, thank you for being here, and we'll chat soon. Much love and gratitude to you. Take care.